Today I'm with the first pick. Ran, it's Young Fella Wednesday, which means we're talking draft eligible players who have caught our eye through the first month of the college games. We have 4 new quarterbacks to get to. Look at old producer Striker on the point with the Young Fella Wednesday's graphic. And we'll also hit some non-QB standouts on both sides of the ball, like we always do. We'll check in on the NFL rookie quarterback situation. Had 2 quarterbacks of the rookie variety play in week 2. And some other rookies, non-quarterback edition, that got our undivided attention after balling now in week 2. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. This is episode 298. And Ran, there are 218 days until the 2026 NFL Draft, Pittsburgh, PA. How are you doing, my man?
Man, that 218, that number is trickling down fast, it feels like.
It is. That's right.
It's coming fast. But nah, man, all is well. Back at the home front. Still working on getting the rest of this office done. My wife told me after we're done with today's pod, I'm getting kicked out for a little while. She has someone coming over to do some stuff. So,
well, it's coming along nicely. What else needs to be done?
Just got to fill out. If you could see what's on the side of me, I got 3 boxes of books that I need to put up. I'm gonna paint the room and just finish building it out. That's all.
You living right. That's what I'm hearing. By the way, speaking of living right, shout out to our guy, BBO98, who left a comment, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and I encourage everyone to do the same. He gave us a list of names that he wants us to check out. And the great thing about the list of names is I had them all on my list of guys to talk about. We're going to talk about one of those guys today, Oklahoma tight end Jared Kanak, I think is how you pronounce it. And he had another list of guys that I can't wait to get to as well. So if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, either me or producer Striker will find it, and we will talk about these guys. Just make sure they're draft eligible. And FBS or FCS, unless you have Division III or NAIA tape, you can send us, because otherwise that becomes a little bit more difficult. So I'm excited to get
Division III St. Lawrence. What's up?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention on Monday, they lost last weekend to St. John Fishers. That's okay, though. This coming Saturday, Parents Weekend, so we're going to be up there playing Alfred. Alfred about to catch some smoke. That's all I'm going to say. They're 1-1. I also say this. Do you know which – I'm going to give it away here, but do you know which team goes to St. John Fisher for training camp every August?
It's either Buffalo or Pittsburgh.
It's Buffalo. Yeah. They're in Rochester, New York. I go up there every August and hang out with Petey Pancakes, which is my nickname for Pete Prisco. And we watch – practice, of course, and then he and I, like 2 old people, go get ice cream at the local outdoor ice cream, best ice cream on planet Earth. Yeah, that's
Man,
how
I'm
we
still
do.
Thinking about the place we went to up in Stanford, that diner. With
Striker, what's that diner called where they serve 40,000 calories worth of food?
Elm Street?
Yes.
Elm Street Diner. Shout out Elm Street
Diner. Good milkshakes there.
They have good everything, and none of it, I would guess, I'm not a nutritionist, is good for you. I'll just leave that. All right, let's go. Shout out to St. Lawrence. Shout out to Elm Street Diner. Shout out to these quarterbacks we're about to talk to. And by the way, this is Crazy Town USA, because we're coming full circle on the quarterback conversation. Because first up, let me check my notes here. Oh, Carson Beck. He is back in the news, Ran.
Timothy Beck.
What'd you call him?
I said Himothy.
Himothy. That's right. Himothy. I love it. Man, I was thinking about it because 14 months ago, last summer, when we did summer scouting with our buddy Rick Spielman, he was a huge Carson Beck guy. I was a little concerned because Carson in 2023 was sort of like J.J. McCarthy in Michigan his last year. He had a lot of help around him, and I wanted to see him take the next step, and he actually did the moonwalk backwards about 4 or 5 yards. A lot of things didn't go great for him at Georgia. Got hurt at the end of the season. Transferred to the U, where he's now replacing Cameron Ward, as I call him. You call him what his grandma calls him, Cam. And all he is doing through the first 3 weeks of the season is looking like first-round pick Carson Beck. So they played USF on last Saturday. Pocket presence and decision-making looked like the Carson Beck I'm accustomed to seeing. Accuracy and touch looked like the Carson Beck I'm accustomed to seeing. Again, one of the issues at Georgia for me was the pressure, and pressure affects every quarterback, but it felt like that's when he's at his worst and what he needs to work on. But I feel 180 degrees different about Carson Beck in September of 2025 than I did in September of 2024.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you, and I had him lower on my rankings coming in the year, but then it makes you go back and you look. You talked about 2023. I think in 2023 he was only sacked 11 times that year. Last year in 24 he was sacked, I think 18 times, but he felt a lot more pressure. And so I think you get a different version of him when he's being pressured versus when he's protected and he could stand there in the pocket and deliver the ball. Right now, I mean, he's completing 79% of his passes, which is crazy, he's on pace to break the record. And then so far, he's been well protected. He's only been sacked twice, and it's kind of on pace for a 2023 type season. It's on pace to be sacked 11 times or less. So you can't deny how he's played so far. And we said it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about him. He looks confident. He looks sure of himself out there playing. I thought last year at Georgia, I thought the pressure of playing at Georgia and having to be the guy, I think it wore on him. And you could see and feel like he didn't want to be the guy that messed it up. And then I think now at Miami, he feels like the program is his and he's more confident in what he's doing. And that could be the difference in coaching, because we saw Cam Ward. Well, Cam isn't short on confidence anyway, but we saw a guy at Miami last year after transferring in from Washington State that he looked in command the same way. So maybe it's something down in the water in Coral Gables where they breathe new life into these quarterbacks.
I think the confidence thing you mentioned is so incredibly important, because it's cliche and I say it all the time, but it's 100% true. Fit matters, man. Like, fit matters. And if you're not playing with confidence, I don't care who you are, you're going to look not like the quarterback that you are perhaps capable of. So they got it right over the first month of the season. The follow-up question, I was talking to one of my buddies who's a scout yesterday about this. You tell me if this is too rich for you and how far you're willing to go. Number one, part A of the question, is Carson Beck a first rounder? And number two, my buddy said that he had Carson Beck number 2 behind Nussbus in terms of his QB rankings of guys coming out at the quarterback position.
Let me answer your first part. The way he's playing now, I think he's in the conversation for first round.
I agree.
And that's based off of how the rest of these quarterbacks have looked. I've said it time and time again, no superstar is playing like a superstar right now in college football. Right. So that's my opinion. Now, in terms of your buddy that's a scout, having been a scout, we all have recency bias to a degree. And if a guy's playing well, oh, yeah, I have him ranked high. You know what I mean? And sometimes I always question, and I don't know who your buddy is, keep your source. But if it's a guy that's in the Southeast, maybe he's only seen, Nuss and Beck. He hadn't seen the John Mateers and everybody else. So sometimes it's a little more context needed as to why, Carson Beck or whomever else is there. Because we talked to a bunch of people that said K. Klubnik was their QB1.
Yeah.
And let's see if they hold true to that. You know what I mean? Right. So let's we're going into week 4 of the college football season. And so let's just allow the season to continue to play itself out.
Sound like an old head GM.
Yeah, man, you got to see that beginning, that middle, and that end. You got to see the whole picture, because we were talking about even Garrett Nussmeier and his stats, but his stats hadn't stopped his team from winning. And so we're so accustomed right now for these quarterbacks to throw for 40 touchdowns and, X amount of interceptions that now they're going to be on pace to throw for 25 touchdowns and 30 touchdowns. I mean, try this on for size. Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman. If I'm correct, and Stryker, look it up for me. I don't know that Troy Aikman threw for over 30 touchdowns in any year that he was in the NFL as a quarterback.
He did not.
He won football games.
He did.
And he won championships. You know what I mean? So the stats aren't always a measure of how great a person is playing. It's just like you said, it's the totality of the picture and the program.
What do you think the most touchdown passes Troy Aikman threw in the regular season?
Let's say 28.
23.
Well, there you go.
And he
And
threw 9.
He had Michael Irvin, he had Alvin Harper, he had Jay Novacek, Emmett caught the ball well, Moose Johnston caught the ball well. You know, he had guys to throw to, but I mean, when you had a dominant offensive line like they had and a dominant run game, you didn't need to.
Yeah, look at that. So if you're listening, Stryker just pulled up stats of Hall of Famer Troy Aikman. You can see there, 23 is the max in 1992. And then, in fact, that's the only time he eclipsed 20.
There you go.
All right. Look, in my buddy's defense, he keeps up on all the quarterbacks. He is notoriously fickle when it comes to evaluations. So I'll be excited about someone. He goes, nah, settle down. So I was actually a little surprised that he was going down that road. Now, he might have been a Carson guy in 23. I can't remember. Because a lot of NFL people felt like they were Carson guys because of the pro-style offense, the things he was able to do that we saw glimpses of in 23. And he was the exact opposite of, Josh Allen, for example, coming out of Wyoming.
Yeah.
So
now I will say this because you mentioned Josh Allen. There's a scout in the league right now who I highly, highly respect. And he's a guy I go to for checks and balances for myself. He watched the game in that Josh Allen had at Wyoming. I think Josh Allen may have thrown 3 interceptions in that game.
Yeah.
I remember him hitting me up saying that was the best 3 interception game I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I was like, is that even possible? But he was spot on. So,
yeah.
Hopefully your guy's right. I'm not saying that he's not, but like I said, I like Carson Beck a little bit more in 23 than I did in 24. And that's the beauty of it. You have a guy there that you've seen variances in his years in 23 and 24. And so now when we write him up for 25, I'll have 3 years of evaluations on him, and we can see what the true picture is.
Yeah. And the other thing is sort of funny. I tweeted this out yesterday because I was writing something on CBSSports.com after what you and Jonathan Jones and I talked about on Monday's podcast. And if you missed that, every Monday we talk about the weekend that was in the NFL. And we're talking about Joe Burrow and finding backup quarterback. Do you draft him?
Ran it back Mondays.
Got to get Rand's name in there on the branding, as JJ teases me. But I tweeted this out because I was looking up some stuff. Of all the quarterbacks drafted since 2023, the second best quarterback in terms of efficiency, success rate, EPA, whatever you want to look at, Drake May is crushing it. He's number 1. Number 2, my guy Spencer Rattler. 5th round pick. He's playing pretty efficient in that Kellen Moore offense. Now they're 0-2, and he's yet to win an NFL game, but it's not because of him. The other thing that I thought was interesting, you go back to the 2021 draft and look how well the quarterbacks have played from drafting 2021 to 2025. Number 1, Brock Purdy in terms of efficiency. Number 2 is Drake May. Number 3, McCorkle Jones. So you can get to where you want to get to, but sometimes Mac Jones fit matters. Brock Purdy fit matters. And you just have to be in the right place at the right time. And look, man, I apologize for saying Drake May should sit for a year because I thought he was up and down coming out of UNC. Didn't have the same weapons he had the year before when Josh Downs left and so on and so forth. That dude is balling.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you. Like, let me ask you this. Right now, you can't ask me any questions. You just if you're Ben Johnson, would you rather have Drake May or Caleb Williams? And they both know nothing about your offenses that are standing on the street corner. You got to pick one up and go take to the game on Sunday.
I think obviously this is a loaded question, but I think if you're answering it truthfully, I think you much rather have Drake May at this point.
Yeah, and that's the point because no one coming out, I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys thought differently, no one was taking Drake ahead of Caleb, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's just, so wherever your opinions are on Carson right now, they're probably going to change. But credit to him, man, for balling out. Like, that's the bottom line. And I'll be interested to see who we're going to give our, with the first pick, young fellow Wednesday Player of the Week award to after this thing's over because we don't talk about it. I'm just going to ask you. You're going to tell me. All right, next up. Man, was I excited to watch this young fella play because I didn't know a lot about him other than he had transferred from UCLA, sat on the bench last year behind Bo Nix. Not Bo Nix, sat on the behind Dillon Gabriel, excuse me. Dante Moore, he's only a redshirt sophomore, so he can come back. But he ain't playing like somebody that necessarily needs to come back. And I'm not trying to push him one way or the other. I'm just talking about what I've seen. Now, look, they played Oklahoma State 2 weeks ago, and I think they beat them 5,000-3. Last week they went to Northwestern. I don't know if you got to see that game last week, but they're redoing Northwestern Stadium, so they play in a stadium right on the lake, and it looks like it holds about 50 people. It's actually sort of fun, but I don't remember the last time Oregon played in a stadium that small. And he's not asked to do a lot, but when he is doing it, it looks pretty good. And he's a pocket passer. You might think he's a good athlete, but he stands in the pocket. He's getting through his reads. He got off to a slow start against Northwestern and got warmed up. I thought he's really good at navigating the pocket and making off-platform throws. And I love the accuracy and the confidence with which he plays. It was just something we just talked about with Carson. What do you think of Dante Moore, Oregon quarterback?
I think the thing you said the most stood out to me was the accuracy. That stands out the most. And, looking at these things makes you go back and look at the numbers. And, I mean, he's completing 78% of his passes, on the season. So he's right there neck and neck with Carson Beck. And another cool stat for him is he hasn't been sacked yet through 3 games. And so the cool thing about the Oregon program is they always find that quarterback that is great for their system.
Crazy.
And you go back and you look at it. Now, whether they become great pros, that's a completely different, subject. But every year they have not only a good quarterback, but they have efficient quarterbacks that play well in their system. And you talked about him being a redshirt sophomore. I mean, Uncle Phil's pockets are deep, so he'll probably come back next year. I don't think
there's Fresh Prince Uncle Phil. That'd take me a moment there. Yeah, Phil Knight. Okay, that's right. That's a good point.
Uncle Phil's pockets are deep, so I think there's a chance he'll come back. But I'm glad you brought his name up to highlight him.
He's just been fun, and again, I've had actually scouts tell me to quit talking about these young guys sometimes because you don't want to lead them in the wrong direction. Hopefully, they're not listening to me for advice. But he's been fun, and I saw him after the game. He was on set with the Fox guys, and the level of maturity that he appeared to have, at least publicly, was something I took note of. Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein is doing a great job of putting him in position to have success, and I think that sometimes is undervalued. The same for what they're doing with Carson Beck in Miami. And tell me about this comp, because this is Will Stein's comp, who played in Louisville with Teddy Bridgewater. He gets some Teddy Bridgewater vibes from Dante. And if that's leadership as well, that's an absolute grand slam, whether we see him in the draft cycle this year or next year.
I can see that. And I don't think there was a bigger Teddy Bridgewater fan of him coming out than me.
Yeah.
And so anytime you get a Teddy Bridgewater comp, for me, it's like, okay, now it catches my attention. Because prior to that knee injury, Teddy was on his way to being one of those top-tier guys in our league. And Teddy's made a Pro Bowl. Teddy's made the playoffs as a starter. And he is that guy. Someone mentioned to me the other day, like, man, how does Teddy keep getting jobs in the NFL still to this day? But it lends to who he is as a leader and what he brings to the locker room and to that quarterback room, that he's a guy that you just want to have around. I mean, Teddy's a winner. He's a winner at all things. He's a winner in life. For him to go take over his alma mater high school program and immediately flip that program. And people forget this, and this is just me going back in my South Florida history. Teddy started his high school career as the third receiver at Miami Northwestern when Ja'Cory Harris was the quarterback. And so Teddy became the starter, I want to say maybe his junior year. And he was committed to the University of Miami to Randy Shannon. They had a switch at head coach. Al Golden comes in and wants Teddy. And now this part, this is where, this is other people telling me the information that they wanted him at receiver. Al Golden wanted him at receiver. So Teddy chose Louisville, which Charlie Strong was the head coach, I believe. He chose Louisville for the opportunity to show everybody he could play quarterback.
And it worked out.
And then he went on and had a great career at Louisville, first round pick, and was the guy up until that knee injury. So anytime you get a Teddy Bridgewater comp, to me is big in my eyes, and it makes you look a little deeper.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because, one of the things, and Rick will talk about this, that sort of followed him around is that he could never get a quarterback. And they knew they had their guy in Teddy. And he said when Teddy got hurt, and I think it was August 2016 is when he went down. He said it was like a death in the family, not because they're losing the quarterback, because he's such a great person and just the freakish nature of the injury. And
they canceled the rest of practice that day when he went down.
Right.
They canceled practice. And I remember reading, saying that guys were on the field crying after he was down and had to be carted off. Like, that's the impact. Like, I don't want to say that, like, to me, you have to have that to be a franchise quarterback, but that is like franchise quarterback type lore.
Right.
That this is the guy that everybody in the program, everybody in the organization respects, honors, and like looks forward to working with. And so to me, those are the real guys that have that type of impact.
Yeah. I mean, Rick speaks highly of very few people higher than Teddy. I remember him talking about the draft process and going down there and talking to Teddy. He gave zero doo-doos about the bad pro day with the no gloves and all that other nonsense. He's like, bro, just watch him play. And they were right. And credit to Teddy for keep doing it, man. I just don't know how he gets his helmet on with those dreads on now. For someone who hasn't had hair in quite a while, those dreads look bigger than the helmet sizes they can make. And I don't know how he gets it on his head.
Hey, man, that's the South Florida thing. You wouldn't understand.
Must be hot. The other thing I think about is someone who not known for being particularly fast. At some point, doesn't your hair slow you down a little bit? Like if your hair weighs 5 pounds.
Spoken like a guy that
ran a 5.0.
That's not from South Florida. That's a South Florida thing, man. You wouldn't understand.
You do you. All right, next up. Oh, man, I'm excited about Dante Moore. He's only 20. All right, calm down on that, Wilson. All right, next up. This young man is 22. Watched him last fall. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch him last fall, but I said, okay, this guy is insanely athletic. He needs to go back to school. So Taylen Green, quarterback of Arkansas, did just that. He went back to school. Man, he has a big arm. Man, he's a good athlete. He's a see it, throw it guy. By that, I mean, he's not going to give you a ton of anticipation. But you talked about this. You can scheme up an offense where you get those throws available to the quarterback based on what he's good at and what he's not good at. He's really good out of structure, and he ran all over Ole Miss over the weekend. But the mistakes, which he has minimized this year, are still a thing that are in the back of your mind when you're trying to evaluate, okay, can you continue to minimize those at the next level? But I think I feel much better about Taylen Green now than I did 12 months ago.
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. And I say that because looking at the tape last year, there were so many variances in the play, right? Like you called it. You have your squint. You can squint and see some good things, but there was a lot of things on tape, like you said, it's like, nah, this guy needs to stay in school to continue to develop as a passer. I mean, he's the true epitome of a dual threat. You talked about his big arm, his ability to run. From a production standpoint, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions so far this year. And he's had 100 yards rushing in each of the last 2 games. Now, here's the big thing for me. If Taylen Green, for me, wants to take the next step, he's got some big games coming up. And he's got a full onslaught of games because to date right now, they've only played Ole Miss, Arkansas State, and Alabama A&M. And you still have to play Notre Dame, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Now to me, Ole Miss was the toughest challenge they faced so far. And now you got some real defenses, coming up. So let's see before we crown him. Let's see how he fares over these next 4 games. Not next 4 games, but against these 4 quality opponents.
Yeah. 23 of 37 for 315 against Ole Miss, and then ran for 115 more.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns, and he did have an interception. But I couldn't come up with a good comp for him because he's 6'5". Last year, my comp for him was disrespectfully Felipe Franks, just because he was athletic, but just so all over the place. Like, I don't know what my comp would be for him. I got to think about this because there's not a lot of guys that are 6'5" and does what he does. Like Cam Newton is disrespectful. He's not Cam Newton. How high would you? I know it's early, and you guys like to preach patience. Would you take him on day 2, like a late day 2 flyer?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll be correcting you when you get that one wrong, but that's all right. All right, let's get to your guy. I'm glad you brought this young man up because I don't think he would care. I was talking to our buddy Charles Davis a couple weeks ago, and he was asking me about Haynes King, quarterback out of Georgia Tech, just what I thought about him compared to the other quote-unquote athletic quarterbacks in this class, Lenore Sellers and Taylen Green, John Mateer, whomever else you want to put in there. And it ain't pretty, but I tell you what, Haynes knows how to do, win football games.
Hey, man, this guy's a cult hero. All right. He's a 6-year senior. And anybody who knows me or has worked with me know that 5th year, 6-year seniors to me are guys that aren't getting better. Because in my opinion, the real guys leave after 3. And then guys who are still good, who have something to prove, can do it in 4. And then 5th year, and I was a 5th year senior when I came out, and I was completely maxed out. I didn't realize it at the time, but now I realize I was maxed out. But here's what I want to say. Like, his pro prospects, I'm not here to talk about that today. I know this is a draft show and somebody in the comments is going to mention that. But I just want to put some respect on this kid's name. And like you said, he finds a way. He's got some big wins in his career. He's got 5 wins over ranked opponents. And he came within 8 overtimes of beating Georgia last year. You know what I mean?
You don't say that very often.
No, but this kid, like I said, he's a cult hero down in Atlanta and at the Georgia Tech campus. He's got 354 yards passing on the season, 259 yards rushing. He's almost got Army, Navy, Air Force type stats right now. He has no touchdown passes in 3 games, but he wins football games, man. So I just wanted to put some respect, RESPECK.
That's right.
On Haynes King's name. So shout out to you, young fella.
Whose mom tweeted that out? A former player's mom tweeted that out a couple years ago. Spelled it with a K. People got all angry at her. The other thing is this, man. So to your point, 2024 week 1 went over to Ireland, beat the pants off Florida State, if I recall correctly. And then this year beat Clemson in a game that. Look, I haven't gone back and watched the Clemson defensive players outside of Avion Terrell, but for all the first-round picks on that unit, they're not playing up to that level. And we'll talk about Cade Klubnik at some point in the future too. But Haynes King, tough. There might not be anyone tougher in football. Dual threat, obviously, because that's what he does. He's not. I mean, the cheap and easy comp is Taysom Hill. Taysom was a better athlete, I feel like, and probably better thrower of the football coming out of BYU. But is there a place in the NFL for a Haynes King? Because he feels like probably a priority free agent, if we're being honest with ourselves. I think he's going to be 25 by the time that rolls around. But I feel like he might have value at the next level.
Value in what way? As a football player? Or
as a football player.
Yeah, and it would, honestly, man, it would be open. He would have to be open to trying new things. You look at Julian Edelman when he came out. He was a 7th round pick. Mm-hmm. And worked out at receiver and DB and caught punts and all those things. And I don't know. I can't remember where Taysom Hill went, if he was a 7th round pick or if he was a college free agent. But that was solely the vision of Sean Payton,
right?
In that organization. I can remember our pro department that year. I think that was 2017. He was Taysom Hill was up in Green Bay. Myself, RJ Gillen, and AJ Highsmith, we had a lot of love for Taysom Hill, the athlete, coming out of that preseason. And so I'm not going to sit here and say we had the vision that he would play all these multiple positions and special teams, but we just liked the football player. And so that's more of a Haynes King question than it is an NFL organization. Right, because I don't know any organization right now that will have him high on their board as a pure quarterback. But some of these guys, man, they just hold on to playing that one position and aren't open to playing anything different, which is fine. But because I always preach it is okay to be a good college football player. For all we know, Haynes King may want to take advantage of his Georgia Tech degree and go on, and I'm sure he's making a ton of money NIL. He may want to go on and start his own family office or engineering firm or whatever he may want to do, and may not be open to playing anything else. So I think that's more of a Haynes King question than anything.
Taysom Hill, by the way, was undrafted out of BYU in 2017, and to your larger point and returning to what we talked about earlier, fit matters. And Sean Payton saw the fit, and find someone that loves you like Sean Payton loved Taysom Hill.
Hey, man, we talk about it all the time in the draft process. You don't need all 32 teams to love you. You just need one.
That's right. Absolutely. And to your larger point, Haynes has been balling out this year. So credit to him, credit to that Georgia Tech team. And Clemson, y'all need to get it together. Like, I'll just leave it at that. Because they wanted that last second field goal in part because of that last drive. Haynes King of that offense were able to manufacture. All right. Those are our 4 quarterbacks this week that we hit on. We got 4 new quarterbacks next week. I haven't seen Ran the list yet. But, I mean, I will say this. You tell me how you feel about this, Ran. Because we still haven't talked about Sawyer Robertson out of Baylor. Josh Hoover out of TCU. There's a couple other guys I want to get to that we haven't talked about yet. Does it feel like through the first 3 weeks of the season there are more guys, quote unquote, emerging at quarterback, or is this just par for the course?
I think this is par for the course because those, typically if you're doing your schedule correct, those first couple games are the warm-up games, the get ready games. And then the third game is when, things start to pick up. So that's why I say for some of these guys like Taylen Green, now the meat of the schedule is here. Now let's see, who's real. Because, to quote the GOAT, young Hove, Jay-Z, it's only so long fake thugs can pretend. So when it gets real, we get to see who's real gritty and grimy. So
yeah, another name that's on the old radar, Morton out of Texas Tech. We haven't talked about strikers Drew Aller yet because they refuse to play anybody. So I think they're off this week. Next week, they play Oregon. So we're going to find out right quick about both those quarterbacks. So that's going to be fun. I don't think John Mateer and Oklahoma have a tougher schedule. There's no one in college football with a tougher schedule than Oklahoma over the next 2 months now. So we're going to get a real good glimpse of who John Mateer is. And in case you're wondering, I can't remember. I think we talked about Arch week 1, but I'll just reiterate what you said.
Stop.
Yeah.
We said we're not talking about Arch Quavius, so that's done.
Yeah.
Move right along.
I want to put that out there. We ain't talking about Arch. Someone sent out a tweet, though, as I'm going to talk about. I won't say the tweet. It wasn't very nice. All right, Striker, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to some non-quarterbacks who balled out in week 3 of the college football season, and we'll do that right after this break.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Man, I still can't get over that Rance shushed me over Arch Quavius, but I can't talk about it. Talk about him. What I can talk about is that LSU secondary.
Boy.
You know it's bad, Striker, when Rand doesn't want to talk about Arch Quavius, but he wants to talk about Florida throwing 5 interceptions. And that was a tough stretch.
Listen, this is me cheating, right? This is me getting the opportunity to talk about, an entire secondary. And I don't know if they were just that great or if the Florida quarterback play was just that bad. Let's just call a spade a spade. Yeah, had 5 interceptions.
I like me some DJ Lagway, but he had a rough Saturday evening.
I'm gonna pull a LeBron on you right here. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5, including a.
Oh, we got a graphic for you.
Hey, hold on, man. You didn't have to do my man Rex, sexy Rex, like that. Rex was in my recruiting class and we played together. I would have never known that stat.
For people listening, just so you know. Striker flashed a graphic that says most interceptions in a game since 2000 at Florida. DJ Lagway had 5, obviously, on Saturday. And then, golly, Rex Grossman did it twice in 02. And then he did it, he had 4 2 times in 02 and had 4 more in the season before. So Rex Grossman and DJ Lagway are now on 8.
I'm going to take up for Rex because I think the 2001 season, he may have even been the Heisman runner-up that year. So. Shout out to my man, Sexy Rex, in the class of 99. But going back to this LSU secondary that was led by Deshaun Spears, who had 2 picks of his own, including a pick 6. How about this? How about the LSU secondary had the same amount of touchdowns as Florida's offense on the day? How about that?
That is not what you lead with if you're Billy Napier having a conversation with the president.
I mean, so you give these young fellas And they found a cool rotation now. LSU Secondary has at safety, which they kind of lucked into because if you remember that first game, their starting safety had to sit out because of something that happened in the bowl game when he was at his previous school.
Right. Yeah.
Which forced I think it was Deshaun Spears to have to come in and play. And now he's created a role for himself because he's got ball skills. So now they have to rotate these guys. And then both of them had picks in the game. You know what I mean? So this secondary is playing well. And so I just want to make sure I gave him some love. I didn't want to have my Florida bias in there because it is what it is. But to have 5 interceptions in a game is as my son said, that's crazy.
It is straight up crazy. I mean, we saw the graphic. Rex Grossman thought he was going to have that record forever. And then DJ Lagway, who's a very good football player, by the way, just had an off evening. The only person that didn't get in on the fun was our guy, Mansour Delane, who we talked about previously.
But he made plays and they stayed away from him for the most part.
That's right. You
saw him show up in the blitz some run support. So he's, and I even talked to a scout about Mansour Delaney last week, and he didn't have a lot of love for him. He didn't particularly like the Virginia Tech tape last year.
Okay.
So I told him, I was like, to each his own. I was like, but you need to watch this LSU tape. You know what I mean? Because I can't let you walk into your draft meetings saying this guy stinks or you rejected him potentially.
Right.
And have you looking crazy in front of your respective GM and head coach. So go back and look at that tape.
That was wise words because he is. I actually thought I liked him coming over to Tech and transferring over, and then he's been solid. I mean, the Clemson game, and to your point, they weren't targeting him much over the weekend, and when he got his opportunities, he took advantage of them. All right, next up, and this Bebo98 actually mentioned him as a potential 5-star review prospect, and I already had him on the list, so I cannot wait to get your thoughts on Jaren Kanak is how he pronounces this last name. Kanak. Jaren Kanak. Tight end, quotation marks. But my man was a linebacker. And he moved from linebacker just this season to tight end because he thought it was his best chance to get on the field and contribute. If you told me he'd been playing linebacker for 20 years, I would believe you because he is smooth. He's always open in that he understands. And I'll ask you this. He understands what the defense is trying to do and where the holes in the zones are. How much of that is a function of innate ability and how much of that is a function of him playing linebacker for so long that you sort of know when we talk about quarterbacks playing wide receivers and vice versa, they have that dual ability. Does that translate to a linebacker turned tight end?
I think it's all instincts, right? Because the linebacker stuff is more about, learning a playbook, learning a system. But there are just certain guys that play the game of tackle football that just have instincts and feel and just understands just the conceptually what they're trying to do. And so you mentioned him, and this is going to bode well for him as he continues to grow, having the linebacker background. Like, he'll be a problem on special teams.
Yeah.
It can be a mismatch on special teams because he understands how to tackle, how to play in space, how to take angles, from a coverage standpoint. And so he'll be able to be a mismatch. But you talk about a guy, we're talking about like you said, I'll put the air quotes on tight end. He's averaging over 17 yards a catch, which is an unreal stat. And he has a 30, I think he at least has a 30-yard catch in every game this year. So, yeah, 4 catches for 86 yards last week. Football player. To me, that's the highest honor that you could give any player. Any label that you could put on a player is a football player. And you talk about a young man who asked to be moved over to give himself the best opportunity, best chance to play, where especially in this day and age, most just transfer and go look for another school to go play. But to me, this shows you his unselfishness, his ability to be a good teammate and want to do what's best for the program instead of just packing up and leaving Norman and going to look for something somewhere else. He knew he could contribute to this football team and wanted to be a good teammate.
Yeah, and I went back and watched all his targets over the course of the season because Just had 16 of them, 14 catches, 242 yards, as you mentioned. And I wrote natural hands catcher. He can run. And look, we don't have producers on here, but you can roll your eyes if you want. This guy's a tight end. He's from Kansas. He ran the 110.37. That was 6th fastest in Kansas State history.
Hold on. Go back. Say the time again.
10.37.
10.37 is fast anywhere.
Okay. Thank you. Because you like to roll your eyes unless
I thought maybe you got your 3.7 and your 7.3 confused. That's why I asked you again. Like 10.37 is fast.
6th fastest in Kansas State history.
Like that will get you in the state meet. You'll be a state finalist. 10.37 will win you state in most states.
Kansas,
unless you're an Olympian type guy.
Yeah.
But that's faster than my best time.
Okay, I finally got your attention.
Yeah.
Hopefully I didn't get the numbers transposed. It ain't a 10.73, but I'm gonna go with 10.37 until I get confirmation otherwise. That's I wrote it down right.
Yeah, I think you might be dealing with 10, and even 10.7 is still, especially for a guy that plays tight end and linebacker.
But the other point I wanted to make was that
look it up, striker.
He's a willing blocker, and again, part of that maybe is that his mentality as a linebacker. He's got work to do in line because he's a little undersized. I think he's like 230-ish and change. He's in the 230 range. But those are things that you worry about when you draft a tight end, whether he's played there all his life or not, just the in-line ability and not just the pass catching ability.
But I'll be honest with you, Ryan, like from the inline standpoint, how many of these tight ends are really playing inline at this point?
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I mean? The Colston Loveland wasn't an inline blocker. Like we can pretty much say that about every tight end. That's why I like Tyler Warren as much as I did, because he had the size and the competitiveness to be a true. And that's why I said Tyler Warren was a true 3-down wide tight end, right? Because it's not you're not tipping your hand when Tyler Warren is in the game, because you could flex him out. You could have him block in line. You trust him to do that versus the quote unquote athletic. Oh, from our man Nagy. Yep. So 10.37.
There we go. Yeah, I had looked. I had access to these guys what they do in high school and track, so I didn't even see Jim Nagy's tweet. Former head of the Senior Bowl, who's now the GM at the Oklahoma Sooners, and Striker found this if you're listening to it. And Nagy said on Twitter, "Did you know Jaren Kanak ran a 10.37 100-meter dash in high school, which is 6th fastest time in history? Look at that confirmation. 1,600 rushing yards as a senior in high school as well. So this dude's a just good football player. Is a little segment we do on with the first pick, and I think he might be the face of just good football player for 2025 right now. Him and Haynes King. I mean, those are two guys. If you're just starting a team where you want competitors, I feel like you can't go wrong with those two guys.
No, I mean, ball players. That's all you could ask for. There it is. Respect Haynes King.
Kanak. I got to get that right. All right. I would draft Jaren Kanak. I don't know if you would.
No, I would. Listen, you can't have a roster with too many good football players, right? And versatility. I mean, you go back and look at how those New England rosters were constructed when they were in their dynasty phase. They had guys that could do a ton of things, like versatility.
Troy Brown.
Versatility matters.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they had what's my man? Shoot, I can't think. He played D-line. They put him in fullback in the goal line situations. His name's on the tip of my tongue. His dad played in the league.
Oh, Mike Vrabel. Because Mike Vrabel played tight end.
Look at Vrabel. He's just starting outside linebacker, played special teams, caught 12 touchdowns. Oh my God, striker, find his name.
Did he play with Vrabel? He's that far back?
Yeah, he played with Vrabel, but he also played with the Colts, and he was our goal line fullback as well. My God, his dad played for the Colts. We're part of, he and I do know this, we're two of the 5 father and son combos who have ever played for the Colts organization. Because
I was going to say Roosevelt Colvin played for both teams, but I don't remember him ever playing.
Yeah, but it's not Rosie. It's not Rosie Colvin. It'll come to me. It'll come to me, and I'll just blurt it out.
But your larger point is that you can never have enough of those guys on your roster.
Yeah, versatility, man. Versatility.
Fit matters. I got a lot of little splinters. Fit matters. I got to get a bunch of T-shirts made up. All right, next up, got to get some running backs in here for God's position. As Rand likes
it's not Craig Hayward, is it?
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not. I'm looking it up now.
Father-son duos to play for the Colts. That's all I got so far.
All right. Keep at it, Striker. Use that Penn State education for good, not evil. All right. I wasn't aware of this young man until every Saturday evening, Sunday morning, I'll look through and see who had big weekends. Mahdi, running back out of Arizona, transferred from Texas State. And prior to that, he was at Houston Christian. He went off over the weekend. And he went off to the tune of, against Kansas State, he ran for 189 on 22 carries, so 8.6 yards per carry. Also caught 4 balls for 40 yards. Obviously, he lines up at running back, but they had him in the slot for a minute as well. I thought he's a really good zone runner, one cut and go guy. Played with pretty good vision. He's undersized, so that concerns me in terms of where you're going to draft him. But for lack of a better word, the grittiness, like the toughness, he's gonna play hard every single snap. And I thought he was reliable. Now, natural hands catcher, when the ball was thrown his way, that's an asset, even if they don't necessarily utilize all that all the time at Arizona. Honestly, because wide receiver is so deep, and I didn't know anything about him but the stat line. So when I watched him, by the time I was done, while I liked him, I don't know, because there's so many guys, quote unquote, just like this, if he gets drafted. But I can also recognize that he had a fantastic afternoon against Kansas State, which is a Power 4 program.
Yeah, and the name I was looking for was Dan Klecko.
Oh, Klecko. Yes, dad played for the Jets too.
Is it Dan or Joe Klecko? It was one of the
Joe's
Kleckos.
His dad.
Okay, so it was Dan. That's who I was looking for. But anyway, talking about Ismail, like you said, he is a little bit undersized, and I was glad to see him get going because he was off to a little bit of a slow start on the season, just from in terms of production. And some of that could have been due to the blowout wins that they've had early, so there was no need for him to really play extended snaps. But you talk about being productive. I mean, you go back and you look at, the previous 2 years, he had 990-something yards last year, had over 1,300 yards the year before that. So he's productive. And like you said, don't know that he will be a high draft pick or a draft pick at all just because of the sheer size and how you're going to be able to use him. But he is a guy that will get into someone's camp and make some noise in the preseason. He is the type of runner that you'll be talking about during the preseason process. And at minimum, you'll have on your practice squad and find a little role for him.
So he is verified 5'8" and 2/8, 182. So maybe a little light. 5'8" is fine. But I was thinking about, because I said, maybe late day 3. He's not in the same conversation for me as Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in terms of ability. And part of the reason Krosky-Merritt was drafted late is because he only played one game last year for, incidentally, Arizona. But his tape at New Mexico was, as our buddy B-Mac likes to say, red hot. I think Mahdi is not the athlete, but that doesn't mean he can't be an NFL contributor. You agree with Krosky-Merritt a little better than Mahdi?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Good weekend for you, Izzy. Keep it up, brother. Next up, another young man that just popped onto the scene, given the way they played over the weekend, wide receiver Chris Brazzell II. And let me see, 6'5", 200 unofficial. And over the weekend, they played Georgia. And for the season, he has 27 targets, 21 catches, 372 yards for 5 touchdowns. Just one drop, and that gets your attention. Obviously, vertical threat because of his size. He is not Dante Thornton, who was drafted last year in the 4th round out of Tennessee by the Raiders. He doesn't have that sort of speed. He is more of a contested catch specialist, if you want to call him that. And the follow-up to that, and this is something that Rick used to talk about, and I'm sure you would agree. If you have a lot of contested catches in college, does that mean you're slow? Or does that mean the quarterback's throwing the ball behind you? And how does that translate to the next level? And that led me to my next point. He's not elusive, but I think he's a pretty good route runner for his size. So you have to find a system in which that makes sense. And that's not to take anything away from his strong start to the season. What do you feel about what I've laid out to you so far?
No, so based off of what you said, then I'll go into my thoughts. Like if you're not creating separation at the next level, it's, it's usually due to a lack of speed or a lack of like lateral quickness. And so we used to basically sum up certain guys in the meeting room and we would say, can't run, can't separate. Now, here's what I'll say about separation. Separation doesn't always have to be you running faster or by a guy vertically, or you're quickening the guy and you're beating him out of breaks laterally. Sometimes your separation can be your strength. You can create separation with your size, with your strength. I remember Tony Gonzalez, particularly in the latter part of his career, he used his length a lot and his ability, his former basketball skill set to box out guys at the top of the route and then be able to extend, away from his body to catch the frame and force the defender to have to play through his body and through his length. But this kid, man, he stepped up like you talked about and like the graphic showed, 6 catches, 177 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the number one thing I looked at and I wrote down was ball skills. His ability to track the ball and his hands to go up and high point the ball. And so it was like in this game because they jumped out hot. Tennessee jumped out hot, on them, and you thought like, oh man, like they're going to go down. But then Georgia did what Georgia does. They battled back. And when Tennessee needed a play, it was this kid that stepped up again and made the play for him. So like where he is, interested to see how this is going to carry over. And if you think about this Tennessee offense from a statistical standpoint, there's always the one guy that puts up gaudy numbers in this system, right? So this system is it's almost wide receiver friendly, if you will, to a degree, because it's still a lot of route conversions. And they spread the field well. They maximize every blade of grass in this offensive system. It's really hard for a quarterback because you really have to be in tune with your receivers and knowing where the heck they're supposed to be.
I'm laughing because you need Joe Milton arm strength at times to play in this system to get the ball, make the field side throws. And
so this guy would be my candidate for young fella player of the week.
Okay. All right.
If I had to give one, even in a losing effort, like these numbers are crazy, and his production was crazy.
So to follow up on that, and we'll give the official announcement on your young fellow of the week a little bit later. And I know he's not the same build as a Juwan Jennings or even a Juwan Johnson, but those guys aren't known for separation, but they're extremely successful in the league. So there is a place for those sorts of players. Can he be that sort of physical type player? Can he put on 15 pounds or whatever he needs to, if that's the role you see for him?
See, the problem for me when we do this, and we're all guilty of it, is when we talk about, he needs to put on weight. Yeah. Well, the problem is if we're talking about a guy who we feel may have some deficiencies, for all we know, this guy is a 4'4" guy. But it's one of those things where so we're going to use a player who's not fast, right? Who doesn't have top end speed. And the first thing we want to do is put weight on them. You're only going to kind of accentuate the fact that they're not fast, because they're not fast with the current weight that they have. And you're going to typically slow them down. So let's just let him be who he is, right? And however his skill set translates, because there are a ton of players in the league right now that aren't true separators. Yeah. But they have the ability. Like in San Francisco, Juwan Jennings, he separates with his mind. And I say that because he understands how to find a void in coverage, when to sit down, when to run through, how to use his body, how to use his strength. And so that's where he's made his money, is playing that. So it doesn't always have to be vertical speed or lateral separation. You can play the mental part of the game and separate that way.
And that's a good point. I feel like if my thing is squinters and fit matters, your thing is let's just give it a moment and let's see how this thing plays out. That's your saying.
I'm patient. Pump your brakes.
But to your other point, everyone, by everyone I mean me, was so excited with what Jalon Hyatt was able to do in his 1 year productivity at Tennessee as a down the field burner, and that has not in any way, shape, or form translated. And there you can.
And the reason why is because he didn't have a bag. Right. He was just a vertical. I'm fast. And, Hendon Hooker has the arm to put it out front and I could go get it. Right. But if someone is playing coverage and they play you from the top down and now you got to run routes, and that wasn't in his bag, route running wasn't in his bag. And no disrespect to him, because throughout the interview process, he wanted to prove to everybody that he could run routes, and he thought he was being disrespected because people said he couldn't run routes. Well, route running is a craft. And that's something that you have to work on, consistently. And so it doesn't end. The great route runners that's what they do. They run routes all day. And so if you don't have that in your bag, you don't develop being a route runner in 2 months in the spring. That's something that you continuously have to work on.
That's right. No, that's a good point too. And for all the things you could say about Antonio Brown, I don't think anyone worked harder to become the route runner he became. He was a 6th round pick. And I remember
I've seen it. I've seen it in person. I remember this, and I can't remember what year it was, but I was living down in Miami, and he was working out with Chad Johnson. And you talk about a guy who willed himself to be great, and he just put in the work. I remember, and I know for sure they didn't see me, but I was because I remember Chad posting on social media, if any DBs that are training down here in Miami want to come get some work, this is where we are. And I remember showing up one day, just chilling on the side and watching those guys work, and like AB works or worked.
Yeah.
And I think, for wherever, things ultimately ended for him, like that guy was a worker, and he willed his way into being what he became on the football field.
Because I remember he was drafted in 2010, I believe, because he was a 6th round pick. Manny Sanders was a 3rd round pick that year at SMU. And there were conversations in training camp that AB was going to get cut because he didn't know the playbook and he was struggling and so on and so forth. If I recall correctly, the very first game against Tennessee, he returned a kick for a touchdown. And after that, it was on like Donkey Kong on the field. Off the field, how
off the field, it was on like Donkey Kong.
Also true. I'm laughing because you remember Merrill Hodge?
Mm-hmm.
The great Merrill Hodge, former Steelers running back. He used to work for ESPN. I interviewed him probably 15 years ago now, maybe longer than that. And he didn't know who I was. And we were just talking about Steelers for something. And he was fantastic. And the first thing he said was, "What's up, Freak Daddy?" And I always laugh when I think about Merrill Hodge, just not knowing who he's talking to. What's up, Freak Daddy? So, and I think
game recognized game.
I was going to say, knowing me and Striker knowing me, I'm probably the farthest thing from Freak Daddy, but I appreciate where Merrill was going with that. All right. Enough with the Steelers talk.
Striker, can we get a shirt made that says "What's up, Freak Daddy"?
Yeah, I can work on that.
Face on it, please.
Little did Merrill Hodge know what he had created. All right. Our final non-quarterback who had a great college week, Keyshawn James-Newby, another guy that just landed on my radar because I was just sniffing around the stats. He doesn't have a sack this year, but the reason he popped on my radar is because they played UCLA and they beat the pants off of UCLA, a team that obviously moved on from Deshaun Foster after 3 games. He had 8 hurries against UCLA. And, you're not talking about New Mexico as a team. That ain't the Oregon-Penn State matchup. You play them early in the season to get yourself warmed up for the rest of the calendar. And no one told Keyshawn James-Newby that, the edge rusher out of New Mexico. He played – tell me if you know what division Montana Tech is. That's where he played 21 and 22.
Play who?
He played at Montana Tech in 2021 and 2022.
Congratulations.
You know what division that is of football?
NAIA?
It is NAIA. Then he graduated to Idaho, where he played in 23 and 24. Now he's at New Mexico. And in case you're wondering, utilizing bonus year due to the NCAA blanket waiver for former JUCO and NAIA athletes. And he is verified 6'1" and 3/4 and 239. So, he's a little undersized for edge rush, maybe a little short, but he is powerful, low center of gravity. He's actually really good against the run. He'll set the edge. I love the way he played the run. And I think he's probably a DPR, designated pass rusher, if that's the way you want to use him, with the focus potentially being on special teams first. And maybe you get him out there in 3rd down situations where you can line him up wherever you want to line him up and let him get after it. 11 sacks in 2024 at Idaho. And he has, through 3 games, 17 hurries for the Lobos so far. What do you think about that? Am I a little too high on James-Newby, or did you see the potential for a guy?
No, so I didn't get a chance to watch him. I kind of went and pulled his numbers and saw the double-digit, sacks. And just seeing his measurables, I was wondering, like, is he James Houston?
Oh, that's a good call.
I wonder if he's James Houston. I believe James Houston was a day 3 pick. They're similar size, and James is still kicking around the league. I just saw his name in the team he was with here recently. I think he's with Dallas. He's with Dallas. James.
Okay. I saw him on Sunday. I can't remember who. Yep, you got it.
And so he could be that guy. Like I just circled him up as a guy to watch and kind of buzz through, go back and look at some tape from last year and look at his pressures and hurries, for this season. So another good young name to have, well, not young, but a new name to have on the list to kind of fill the entire draft board.
Yeah, you got that one right. 6'1", 241 is what James Houston was during the pre-draft process. He flashed his rookie season as a DPR in Detroit, and then he had some injuries. He was at Jackson State with Coach Prime, I believe, after leaving Florida. And real shocker here, producer Striker, he's a South Florida kid. He's from Fort Lauderdale. So did you even know that? You had to know that. No,
I didn't know that.
Oh, they left his name off the mailing list when you guys had to talk about who you're going to pump up for the week. All right, so shout out to Keyshawn James-Newby. He was a fun watch, and he gave UCLA all they can handle and then some. And, they're dealing with their own issues over there in Westwood. All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to turn our attention to the NFL. And we'll start as we always do this time of year with Cam Ward and how he did. Because Cam Ward, he is good. I'll just leave it at that, and we'll talk about how good right after this break.
Critics agree Leadman is a hit.
We roll the dice one last time.
Men die. Oil companies don't.
All right, we always talk about the rookie quarterbacks. So Cam Ward versus the Rams. They lost in their debut week on the road in Denver, and we talked about how surprisingly good Cam played, not because of Cam, but because of the circumstances and the defense. So just so we're all on the same page. No J.C. Latham in week 2. Tavondre Sweat, both guys you drafted. Neither one of those guys played. Cam Ward didn't care. 19 to 33, 175 yards. Got his first touchdown on one of the craziest throws I can remember seeing that wasn't like a video you sent me from your son's flag football games. Like this is no. Oh my gosh, what a great throw type of situation.
Yeah.
Throw back to Alec Ayamino, the rookie. He was pressured a ton, over 50% of the time in week 1. Cam was pressured 39% of dropbacks in week 2. And I'll just tell you, I'll give you the 30,000-foot view just watching the same old. Elite off-platform and improvisational thrower. I don't know if he's leaning more towards the hero ball, but I want to make sure he stays on time because he can do it, and we've seen him do it. I think sometimes when things break down, he might leave the pocket a little early occasionally, but still a lot to like. And arm talent through the roof, and his second-level touch throws, he looks like a 10-year vet. Like, I don't have very much in terms of concerns about what he did. The touchdown throw, I don't know if you have a conversation with him about it, but it worked, and it was a touchdown, and they were in that game.
Well, the conversation you have with him is like, hell of a job, hell of a ball. It worked this time. We're not going to live with it.
Yeah.
But we know that's in the bag. We're not going to get used to making that type of throw. And like I said in week 1, man, this fan base, this organization, they should feel lucky to have this guy as their quarterback. And that they just have to continue to be able to protect him up front. And to me, that's going to be the big issue in the tail going forward is how they're going to be able to consistently protect him and then just continue to add weapons around him. Like that just is what it is. That's a part of it. But he got better, which is what you want. But you expect that from Cam. Cam is a worker. We talk about the arm strength, the ability to make these impressive throws, the improvisation skills. But I don't think we talk enough about the between the ears part of the game that he is able to play, right? And give him, because you get so excited about the physical traits.
Yeah.
And not that anyone outside of their building, outside of their organization would know how smart he is, but just his ability to pick up the offense, run the offense with command as a rookie is super. Is probably the most impressive thing about his game. And you talk about, Alec, how you say his last name?
Ayumino.
Yeah, him. I was close to putting his name down on this list because he just every week he continues to make the catch. And this goes back to Chris Brazzell, who we talked about earlier.
Good point.
Alec is a guy that isn't a separator but he can make that contested catch. He's going to live in making that contested catch, and he makes it look easy. And so he is slowly becoming Cam's number one go-to guy. And there is a lane where he kind of becomes the top priority in the passing game just because of his connection with Cam. So, it's going to be a good game this week because they have the Indianapolis Colts. These games traditionally are close games regardless of teams' records. And it's going to be here in Nashville at Nissan Stadium. The world is loving Danny Dimes and this Colts team, which is a very well put together team. But I think this is going to be a really tough test for him, and would not be surprised if the Titans come through with the upset.
A couple things. Manor didn't play particularly fast at Stanford, but he ran a 4.44. So sometimes doesn't match up. But he is obviously he's very strong at the catch point. He's physical. He wins at the top of his routes, and that's translated to the next level. And he, to your point, has been someone that Cam can lean on. The other thing you talk about with Cam's confidence, we have seen nothing like we saw with Bryce Young early, who had zero confidence his first few weeks at Carolina. J.J. McCarthy has battled confidence through 8 quarters, and now he's banged up. And you could argue that he's only had a quarter and a half of probably above average football. And, you saw the video going around of where he told Justin Jefferson not to give up on him in the comeback win against the Bears in week 1. Caleb Williams, the team they beat in week 1, you could argue that he struggled his confidence. Point is that Cameron doesn't seem to go to that place because it's not.
Oh, just FYI, they went back to Cam.
Oh,
so it's no longer Cameron. Like I said, your mama call you Clay, I'm gonna call you Clay. So he is Cam. I'm not gonna call him what his mom calls him.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm happy to call him Cam. It saves me the brain power to try to remember. All right, the other quarterback who did some mop-up duty, and we talked about this a little bit on Monday's show because we were talking on when is Joe Flacco going to be replaced by whoever is behind door number 2. I'd imagine it's going to be Dillon Gabriel, third-round pick out of Oregon, drafted by the Browns, came in from mop-up duty, 3 of 3, threw a quick flat, threw a ball on a little swing screen, and then threw a nice little corner route for a touchdown in mop-up duty. I mean, 3-3, he did what he was asked to do. When are we going to see Dillon and or Shador?
I think it's going to be sooner than later because, like I said, it's the whole thing with Flacco was about righting the ship and knowing that you have someone that can go out and play for you, right? And so, and understands the offense, knows the offense, can move the ball. Well, again, and I keep saying it, at some point, the Browns organization is going to have to see what these 2 young guys can do, and if they are going to be the future at the position moving forward, because they're sitting on 2 draft picks, and right now they're 0-2, and if they had the draft today, they would be in the top 5. And right, so and at that top 5 position, it's all right. Do you dress the quarterback? And then also, like, let's be honest, and we have been honest, and we've talked about it. Have any of these quarterbacks that we've talked about or that we're watching from the summer to now, have they played their way into a top 5, position?
Right.
Are you comfortable taking any of these quarterbacks right now in the top 5, saying, especially if you're the Browns organization who's had a history of turnover at the quarterback position, are you comfortable saying that your next franchise quarterback is playing college football right now? You don't know that. And so in order to fully figure that out, obviously that part of the process has to continue to take shape, but also you have to see what you have in your young guys. And Dillon Gabriel, like you said, he came in and did what he was supposed to and mop up duty. I'm sure the Baltimore starters were out at that point and they were playing with, their backups. And so at some point you're going to want to see Dillon Gabriel against the ones. And then how long of a leash are you going to give him? Because you can't just give him a 1-game sample, and if it goes bad, you say, okay, it's Shador's turn.
Right.
Well, no, you got to give him a 3-4 game sample to see what it's like. And then if it's not it, then you move on to Shedeur, and that's going to carry you to the end of the season. And even if Shedeur ends up having a good game in there, then no matter, if he does have a game or two that's bad, then you ride it out for the rest of the season. And then therein lies your answer, whatever you come to. And now you know what your spring is going to look like. But the only way that you're going to be able to answer those questions is by sitting Flacco and giving these young guys a chance.
Yeah, they got a lot to sort through. And the other looming issue is the one you just pointed to. Like, there's no Peyton Manning in this draft class as we sit here. No Joe Burrow. No, not even Caleb Williams. Like, there's no slam dunk guy. And, we'll sort that out. I would appreciate patience, Rand, to see how these quarterbacks develop. We don't have to say it today. All right. I will say this. I think a lot of Falcons fans were impatient with the defense. They are no longer, because they drafted two dudes in the first round who, because I like to overreact, are probably headed to the Hall of Fame. Jalen Walker and James Pearce Jr. And I'll just give you this stat, and you can talk about these guys. In week 2, only one team pressured the quarterback more than the Atlanta Falcons, and that was the Buffalo Bills. Atlanta got home on 53% of their pass rushes, and they blitzed a good amount. They blitzed the 5th most of any team in week 2, but they got home as well, and a large part of that was Jalen Walker and James Pearce Jr. And James Pearce Jr. is long, and he is strong, and he is a problem. Now, you can say, well, left tackle was already out. Christian Darrisaw didn't play. School got hurt. They had to replace him with Aaron Rouse. Man, what do you want me to tell you? Like, those dudes get paid too, and I was excited about what we saw from these rookie pass rushers.
Listen, in the grand scheme of things, in hindsight, I should have just put their entire draft class on here. Right?
Your guy Bowman was balling out too.
Because my guy, badass Billy Bowman, had a pick. Xavier Watts had a pick. And then both of these young guys that we're talking about, Jalen Walker and James Pearce, they registered their first sacks. Jalen got a full sack. James Pearce Jr. got a half a sack. But this is why I felt like Atlanta had one of the better draft classes. Even though they only had, 4 or 5 picks,
Yep.
They had one of the better draft classes, and you're seeing the immediate contribution from their entire draft class. But this is why they take 2 pass rushers in the earlier part of the draft, which everyone gave them hell. Why would you trade back up and give up a first-round pick, next year and get James Pearce Jr.? And I think you're starting to see the fruits of that labor. So they have Arnold Ebiketie, you have Leonard Floyd and Jalen Walker and James Pearce Jr. And because of the athleticism and the versatility of both of these guys, Raheem and Jeff Ulbrich, they're going to be able to create these creative packages of getting these guys, all 4 of those guys on the field together and moving them around, using Jalen Walker and James Pearce as spinners, standing them up over guards, creating these matchups. And so this is going to lead to this defense being able to get after the passer. Like you said, they got home on over 50% of their rushes. And this is what Atlanta has been missing, right? Atlanta hasn't had a pass rush threat since going back to the year they went to the Super Bowl. I think that was the 2016 season when you had a Vic Beasley and you had Dwight Freeney. You had those guys, and you want to go all the way back to my tenure with the Falcons where you had John Abraham. Guys that you knew on those 3rd and long situations that can go get the quarterback on the ground and give your offense another opportunity. So this is why they did what they did, and they're starting to see the fruits of their labor. And
this is how efficient these 2 rookie edge rushers were for the Falcons. So Abdul Carter played 61 snaps for the Giants in week 2, and they had the overtime, so he played a few extra snaps. Michael Williams, the first-round pick of the 49ers, played 44 snaps. James Pearce Jr., 17 total snaps, both run and pass rush. Jalen Walker, 22 total snaps. So they're fresh, number one, and you can rotate them in and out, and they're going to get after it because they're, 2 of the best athletes on the field, and they're not going to be exhausted because, you can certainly know better than I do. Fourth quarter, a lot of the big guys up front, they're exhausted, and the pass rush doesn't look like what it did over the first 2 or 3 series of the game.
Yeah, it's like having a great relief pitcher that comes in that can throw gas. And so now you could come in, you've had, Greg Maddux, throwing all the different changeups and sliders and off-speed pitches. And then now you have John Smoltz coming off in relief, just throwing the gas right by you. And so now that's what you have with these two young dudes.
Man, you're right in my wheelhouse with that Falcons. I mean, that Braves team. That's the last time I really sort of watched baseball. And those, good call. All right, finally, I'm going to go with my guy. I liked him through the draft process. He whipped up on my Steelers. First round pick, Zabel. Plays for the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked him inside to guard. He played tackle at North Dakota State. And throughout the draft process, the thought process that he would kick inside to guard. And I remember talking to some teams that said day one leader, day one captain. And do you remember at the Senior Bowl when Mike Green blew the doors off Josh Connerly Jr. in that one-on-one rep? And I went back and watched it a couple of times, not because Connerly got beat. It happens. He was playing on the right side. He's a left tackle, so maybe that has something to do with it. But when you watch it, the first person over there to help Connerly up is this guy, Zabel. And I asked him about it at the combine, and he said, that's my teammate. We all lose reps, but we're all in this thing together. And I will say this. He is an earth mover in the run game. He was solid in pass pro. Now, he took it to Yaya Black, the number 94, the rookie for the Steelers, who had to play a lot because Derek Carmen's hurt. But he also had some good reps against Cam Hayward, who's going to be a Hall of Famer at some point in the future. So I would be incredibly excited if I'm Sam Darnold, because one of the things we say about Sam Darnold for years is that you pressure him up the middle, he's going to make mistakes. He had no such concerns with the way Zabel played. His ability to combo block and find the second-level guys in space, he looked like a grizzled veteran. So I would be incredibly excited if I were the Seahawks about this first-round pick, because he played at a high level. And we heard DeMarcus Lawrence talk about it a few weeks ago. He was impressed with how good Gray had come along in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're the Seahawks organization, they've had so many swings at trying to get their offensive line right, especially in the draft, throughout the draft process. And it's been an up and down position for them. Yeah, they've taken a lot of swings at it through all different points of the draft. And this is a guy that just feels like what they've been looking for. Now, I'm not saying that, he's Steve Hutchinson or, any of those guys, but typically when you go and you draft a guy like this is a guy that you give the label, hey, man, this guy is going to be a 10-year starter for us.
Yep.
You just plug him and play him, and you just keep it moving, and you don't have to worry about that spot. That's what Zabel feels like. So
a great pick. Maybe not a quote-unquote conventional pick, but the John Schneider and the Seahawks in the first round are rarely conventional. They got that one right.
But see, here's what fans of not just the Seahawks, but just fans of football need to think about, because when you look at this draft process, everyone wants to do the sexy thing.
Right.
They want to do the sexy thing and, make a splash, and all that looks great. But sometimes you have to build these teams, and you're constructing these teams and with the understanding of who's in your division, right? Who's in your division. If you go look at the defensive fronts of Arizona, of the Rams, of San Francisco, you better be able to protect your guy, up front. And so, yeah, you want to go out and get someone that's sexy, that, oh, this guy ran a 4.3 at the combine, or he did this on the short shuttle, but you got to understand, in order to win your division, you have to be able to play good ball within the division, right? And so that's what you carry into these drafts, into the offseason acquisition period of how can we win our division. So moving forward, I hope everyone, when their team takes an offensive lineman, probably earlier than what the draftniks or whoever, says you can, I want you to take a moment before you judge and go and look and say, okay, why would they take this guy? Let's go look at who we got to play. And you say, oh, hell yeah, we do have to block these guys up front. Okay, I get it now.
And what's funny, just looking real quick back at their recent quotation marks drafts, I think the things that got fans confused and maybe frustrated was Rashad Penny their number one first round pick in 2018, the running back. He battled injuries. LJ Collier, the edge rusher in 2019 out of TCU. And LJ Collier was not explosive. He was more what felt like a guy that's going to be setting the edge consistently for you. And maybe he was overdrafted in hindsight. But you look at recent drafts, Devin Witherspoon in 2023 and Jackson Smith and Jigba. They did not need, quotation marks, Devin Witherspoon necessarily at 5. He is one of the best cornerbacks, young cornerbacks in the NFL. Jackson Smith and Jigba went off on the Steelers. Last year, Byron Murphy, who we know is special. I don't think anyone was second-guessing that move. I think they were surprised to see him there when they drafted him at 16. And then this year, Gray Zabel. So it's hard to argue with what they've done recently. And Sam Darnold, that dude's balling.
And like I said, man, it's you're gonna have misses. That's just a part of it, right? Like you can't get around that. Every team is gonna have a miss. It's just a matter of, can you correct your mistake? Are you willing to correct your mistake and not have too many misses in a row? That's the key.
I'm laughing because let's make another T-shirt, Striker, that says "with the first pick" and underneath in quotation marks, we're all gonna have misses. All right, before we get out of here, Ran, got another little graphic for you. With first pick, young fella of the week, who you going with?
I'm going with Chris Brazzell from Tennessee.
Yeah,
I'm going to show the young fella some love. Had a big day in a losing effort, albeit not his fault per se. Defenses have got to make stops when you need the stops. But he kept them in the game, 6 catches, 3 touchdowns, 177 yards. So shout out to you, young fella. You are my With the First Pick podcast young fella of the week.
If you're listening, you should go watch this on YouTube because I told AI to combine me and Rand's face and make this little football here. How'd it do, Rand?
I don't know whose face you can. It maybe gave it my nose, but it's probably
and my muscles. So we're right on point. And your shoes, you got them big old clown shoes on. That's definitely you.
Damn. Okay.
My With the First Pick young fella of the week. I thought you were going to take this guy. I'm moonwalking right back into this man's arms. Carson Beck, baby. Here we go. Carson Beck is balling. As you know, we got some games left to play. The confidence level stays high. He's going in the first round.
Look at you with the hey big head to Carson Beck trying to spin the block.
I do not care that his Lamborghini got stolen. He is balling out. So, way to go, Carson. Way to go, Mr. Brazzell.
There it is.
Look at that.
I need that.
Striker made me a T-shirt. What's up, Freak Daddy? And I look like I just got off work at the bank. So
no, you look like you are running for office.
No one's voting for that guy. Let's keep it real.
Ryan Wilson Obama Jr.
All right, that feels like the perfect time.
Nominee.
That feels like the perfect time to get out of here. Hey, by the way, keep the 5-star reviews coming. We're going to get to Bebo's, the rest of his guys next week, and there's some good dudes on that list that I'm excited to talk about that may not quite be on your radar yet. But leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we will get to those guys sooner rather than later. In the meantime, thank you for watching and listening. Thanks to Producer Striker for fixing up the T-shirt. And we'll be back Mondays for what, Ran?
For Ran It Back Mondays. I'm not going to do you like JJ did.
Thank you. We'll see you guys then.